G'day, welcome along to Rob's Roundup for the council meeting on the 10th of April, which is this upcoming Wednesday. So it'll be live on YouTube as always, and yeah, feel free to come along. So I'm coming today to you live from Waikaia. You'll see my kids flattening around behind me on the pump track behind me here. This is a recently opened pump track which was actually done last triennium. Started with the community board, and that led to a trust being developed, the Waikaia Trails Trust. And they're looking at putting some mountain bike tracks in the forest. Well, they actually started putting some mountain bike tracks out in the forest there behind us, but stage one of their project was this awesome pump track here. So this used to be just an empty piece of grass that was, or empty piece of land that was used for grazing. And yeah, it's been wickedly transformed into something cool, and you see my kids behind me having a ball. So a good way to spend the Sunday afternoon with the family. And our next council meeting on the 17th is actually going to be coming to you from Waikaia, so I'm a little bit early streaming from here, but yeah, it's I call it the Republic of Waikaia. It's such a great part of Southland. I always love coming here. It's a great little village, cool things to do. You've got the museum just over there, and yeah, the kids were hankering to come here today, so I thought I'd come along here and do this. Got a relatively big agenda this week. It's about 400 pages, so a bit of reading to do. Doing it in stages this weekend. First item, we've got the Around the Mountain Cycle Trail flood repairs. So if you can remember back 6 months ago, September, we had a whole lot of flooding in Southland, caused a state of emergency. This damaged quite a bit of our infrastructure, including the cycle trail. So we had 4 major washouts on the cycle trail there, and because we're a great ride, we've through MB we can apply to they call it the Maintaining Great Rides Extreme Event Fund. So the funding application has been approved for repairing that damage to the cycle trail. So it's 290k, so quite a significant piece of work there, but wholly funded from MB, which is great. So we don't have to put any contribution in ourselves. So I'm pretty sure that'll get across the line, but we just need to approve that funding. The second item on the agenda, to do with flooding again, is the roading program from the September floods as well. So if the cycle trail costs 300 grand to fix, our roading network, I'll leave you to guess and then I'll tell you the amount, but about 3 times that, so you're getting close to just under $1 million, so $984,000 worth of damage done to our roading network in that flooding event. So because this fell outside of the approved transport plan from Wakakatahi for the 21 to 24, we've had to apply to them to see if they'd help fund that, and they've agreed. So their funding is 52% of the 984 grand, so that leaves us with 472k to fund ourselves. So it's yeah, outside of the normal budget, but it's coming in existing budgets for this type of work. We do have a budget there for these type of events, so we don't need any additional funding coming through. We've got additional budgets to cover that work, so there's a report there asking us to approve that. The next item is Waituku Water Supply Subcommittee discharge. So last year Council agreed to transfer this rural water supply into private ownership. So 4 families basically had this public rural water supply out at northern Southland, and yeah, it was basically agreed that they would take over that from Council and put that into a privately run setup. So that happened last year, and this paper is essentially discharging the subcommittee and removing delegations from our delegations manual. So we're basically just getting the paperwork to match reality, because the transactions actually happen now and it's running in private supply. And speaking of our delegation manual, we've got some proposed RMA delegation changes as well. So Council is basically being asked to approve additional RMA delegations for staff to ensure they can carry out their operational functions or mandatory objectives. Bit of a mouthful there, but essentially it's basically saying at the moment we've got reports. There's basically overheads involved in bringing reports to Council for stuff that Council can't actually make any difference with a report coming to Council. That's mandatory stuff that staff have to do anyway. So at the moment there's some parts of the delegations manual that say it has to come to Council for a report. So for efficiency, staff are recommending that that they have the delegated authority to make those decisions themselves. The next item is the draft GPS, which is Government Policy Statement on Land Transport for 24 to 2034. Sounds a long way away, but it's not that far when you look at the last 10 years. And this is our submission that we've put into this So the Ministry of Transport released their draft GPS on the 6th of March, and this was actually come through from the new government, so a whole lot of changes come through with the new government in place. As you would have seen, they're putting a lot of emphasis on transport and roading. Our state highways are in a bit of a mess, and they're doing a lot of changes to the way that they do things there. So basically that government policy statement lays out what government expects to achieve for its investment in the roading, and what funding will be provided and how this funding is going to be raised, and how they're going to set to achieve their outcomes and priorities through investment in particular areas. So you would have seen that they're reintroducing their roads of national significance, which we've actually put in our submission, that we're recommending that State Highway 1 from Invercargill Bluff be included in this. It's a very North Island heavy list as usual, but essentially we've prepared a submission following the lines of the Taituara one, and Local Government New Zealand has also put one through, and it's quite interesting when you look at some of the priorities that they've got, and they're realigning a lot of the things they're going to be doing around their infrastructure spend. We've got a real deficit in the maintenance of all of our state highways, and a lot of that's going to be addressed. But I guess for us it's just making sure that Southland isn't forgotten about. We've already got quite a unequitable shortfall between what we generate in Southland with our road user charges and petrol taxes and what actually comes back into the area. So we're continually banging on their door saying we just need our fair share. Don't forget about Southland. So this submission was prepared on the 28th of March, and Council's being asked to ratify this, and if we do need to make any changes, I believe that's going to be possible as well. So kind of along the same lines, we've got the Speed Management Plan, deliberation and adoption. So this is something that we've been talking about for quite a while. We've gone through the various phases of it through the last government. And you would have noticed when the new government came in around December last year, they basically put a stop to a lot of the changes that were being pushed through. We'd actually gone through a lot of the consultation already. I think we had 58 submissions. And when the changes got announced last year from the government, it sort of created a bit of a risk for our speed management plan. We didn't want to put something through that was potentially going to be not allowed, I guess, by the new government. So we had a workshop in February, and we looked at some potential issues resulting from this, and also taking on board the submissions from the public, which has led us to this final draft. So we're being asked to consider this at our council meeting with 3 options presented to us. So a lot of these are the speed limits around the schools, which make a lot of sense. A lot of people have asked for. So it's looking like a fairly logical approach now. There's nothing too out of the ordinary there, and a lot of things about aligning speed limits with the neighbouring councils like ICC, where one half of the road has got a different speed limit to the other half. So just getting some logical stuff in there as well. So it's the final piece of that puzzle for now. These things come up quite often, every 3 to 5 years, so we'll be talking about it again in the future as well. The next item is the electronic district plan implementation. So last year we approved some funds for digitising our district plan. So that's a document that basically informs how we make and shape Southland. So if you're going to go and even build something like this, you need to see how it fits with our district plan, and if it fits those rules and it lines up with the rules, then you don't need to get a resource consent. If it doesn't line up with the rules, then you need to look at getting a resource consent. And basically it's a heavily used document, and up until now it's been a paper-based document. So it's taken a lot of time and energy with people to actually have a good look through it, and this has actually been put online, which makes that information easily accessible, and I guess it's more efficient for staff as well, and the planning areas as well, and the GIS. If you're bored one day and want to have a play, it's really interesting, the GIS mapping tools that are online at the moment, and it's encapsulated all of that into the district plan. So you can type in the address of your property and you can have a look at all of the requirements, all of the land zoning, and a whole lot of cool GIS things, even taking measurements between one point and another. It's actually a really cool tool. And the last part is the draft revenue and finance policy for the LTP. So if you watched our finance and assurance meeting a couple of weeks ago, this was discussed in there, and they've made their recommendation to council. This basically outlines how council funds the operating and capital expenditure for its activities and services for our communities, which essentially underpins how the rates are struck in our long-term plan. So we've got different ways of charging for our rates. We've got targeted rates, so we've got the Waikaia Hall behind us here, so that'll be a targeted rate that'll be charged just for the the area of Waikaia for the users of that haul. The airport in Manapuri is another example of a targeted rate that's just charged for Fiordland, and I'll talk about that again in a second. We've got our general rates, so that's basically like your roading rate, and I'll talk about that again soon too, but that's something that everyone benefits from, the likes of libraries, those sorts of things, so every house will pay a certain amount for that. And that can be split into two ways. So you've got your UAGC, which is your Uniform Annual General Charge, so that's a fixed amount per house. So you might say the museum one's a good one for that, so each house I think pays $15 towards that. Or you've got your capital value, so this is done on the value of your house. So if you've got a higher value house, you'll pay more towards a rate than a lower value house. We've also got our fees and charges, so that's the likes of your dog control. So if you have a dog, you pay for your dog registration. So that's more of a user pays type setup, although there is a small rates contribution for the greater good that comes from that sort of service. Our roading rate, it's quite a complicated one. It's actually split by the sector. So we've got dairy, forestry, farming, mining, industrial, commercial, residential, lifestyle and other. So no matter where you fit into those categories, you pay a different differential for the roading rate. So this is to ensure that we get a fair split for the damage that's done to the road. So obviously your big trucks are going to do more damage than your cars, and your big trucks are mainly used by your farming, forestry and commercial sectors, so they pay a higher rating differential for that rating. It's an extremely complicated structure, but it's set up to try and make it as fair as possible. And I take my hat off to the team that have got this all worked out. We've done a couple of workshops on it, and it's actually incredibly complicated, but in my opinion, it gets it as fair as possible and as sort of accurate to as much of a user pays kind of setup as it can. So this policy is going to go out for consultation with the LTP, so you can have your say on it, whether you like it or dislike it, at the same time that the LTP consultation goes out. And one of the consultation options that's going to be quite a heavy piece of this is the Te Anau Manapuri airport rate. So at the moment, this is a targeted rate for the Fiordland area. So if you live in Fiordland, you pay for the operation of the airport, or I should say that the shortfall of the airport, because that does earn an income from some of its operations. And a proposal's been put forward from the Fiordland Community Board to look at making this a district rate, and to have the district either contributing to or covering all of this rate. And there's a whole lot of work being done at the moment, independent review being done on the airport itself, and a business case being put forward to basically get that running really efficiently and effectively, and treating it like a business. At the moment, it's been sort of like a department of council that's been kind of just operating to meet the needs that it needs to do, but we're looking at what we can do to actually have the airport returning a surplus and becoming an asset. So that piece of work is being done, and yeah, there'll be an opportunity for you to submit on that in the long-term plan. So we've also got Councillor Keith Avell from Gore. He's the Deputy Mayor of Gore and also the Chair of WasteNet, so he's going to come along and speak to us about WasteNet and what that does, which is essentially a shared service between the three councils for looking after the combined. We all have rubbish and we all have recycling, so we've set up a service between the three councils to make this efficient. And yeah, Keith's going to come and explain to the councillors how that works and what the current strengths, weaknesses and opportunities are inside that setup. So yeah, that's about it for the Rob's Roundup today. Don't know if I mentioned at the start, but yeah, the 17th of April council meeting, we're actually coming to you live from Waikaia, so a little bit ahead of myself here doing this Rob's Roundup from Waikaia, but yeah, like I've really enjoyed getting out into the community for these council meetings, and yeah, this is the first one this year, coming out into the Aulasa area, looking at the cool things that we've got here with the mountain bike trail in the forest, the pump track behind us, Switzer's Museum over there. It's not hard to fill in a day out in this neck of the woods, and also things like our Riversdale wastewater treatment plant, which has just newly been finished. So we've got a whole lot of cool things we can look at out here, or cool things for a councillor to look at wastewater plants. But yeah, it's a great part of the world, and look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. And yeah, feel free if you want to come along and watch a council meeting in Waikaia. We'll be here on the 17th as well. Thanks everyone. Have a good one. Cheers.